Hello friends, welcome to the channel. Today we will talk about the greatest American playwright Arthur Miller and we will analyze his play Death of the Salesman as a tragedy, how it fits into the characteristics of epic tragedies. Arthur Miller, one of the greatest American playwrights, I'll say, lived for 80 years from 1915 to 2005. Best known for All My Sons, Death of a Salesman, A View from the Bridge and The Crucible. And during his lifetime, during his time period when he started understanding the world, he saw the boom of roaring 1920s. And he is the one who saw the Great Depression as well, which started in 1929. He saw very clearly World War II and many more events of the whole world. Maybe that is the reason he understood the common day-to-day lives of people around himself, and that is the reason his plays generally center on the everyday life of people in these kind of circumstances, showing the effect of wars, economic collapse, and political pressure on the common man. In this video, we will talk about four of his major works in Death of a Salesman out of these in detail. 1953, The Crucible, 1955, A View from the Bridge, 1949, Death of a Salesman, and All My Sons, 1947. If you have been through all the four plays or maybe any one of these, you will realize that all his plays are very close to reality. Anything that is mentioned in the play, any dialogue, any event that can occur to any normal human being, nothing is very superficial. His writing style hence could be described as realism, meaning that he presented situation in his plays in the same form as they are presented in real life. जिस तरीके की रियल लाइफ होती है, जैसे लोग रियलिटी में एक्ट करते हैं, बिहेव करते हैं, जो सिचुएशंस रियलिटी में आती हैं, वो सभी सिचुएशंस इजीली विजिबल होती हैं इन दी प्लेस ऑफ आर्थर मिलर. A realist writer describes society as it is without any influence of false hope and unreal optimism. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि by the end everything will be fine and something miraculous will happen and all is well that ends will kind of end. No, nothing like that. Something that happens in reality with human beings. I'm not saying you always there are bad things only, but those kind of things which do not seem to be very high profile, very miraculous, very out of the box, ऐसी इवेंट्स हमें उनके प्ले में नजर नहीं आती. सबसे पहले बात करेंगे क्रूसिबल की. द क्रूसिबल 1953 play by him and dramatized and partially fictionalized story of the Salem witch trials that took place in Massachusetts Bay Colony during 1692 and 1693. Salem witch trials actual event, and these were a series of hearings and prosecutions, executions of real people accused of witchcraft in colonial Massachusetts between February 1692 and May 1693. कुछ 6-7 महीनों के बीच की बात है. बहुत सारे लोगों पर ये इल्जाम लगा कि they are actually doing witchcraft. More than 200 people were accused and 30 people were found guilty, 19 of whom were executed by hanging. And at the 300th anniversary, this park was also created. 300th anniversary events in 1992 to commemorate the victims of the trial. I'm talking about. A park was dedicated in Salem and a memorial in Denver. So all the places where these trials took place, a park is created as a memory to those who were the victims. Human beings पर ये इल्जाम लगाना कि you are the witch और उनको hang भी कर देना quite shows the mentality of the Puritans people of that point of time. Let us talk about A View from the Bridge. It is a play by him that was first performed 1955. And it is concerned with justice system, law system, how justice and law are applied specifically to normal people. It contrasts the justice dealt out in Italy in ancient times with the justice system of modern America. Ancient versus modern, you can say. This can be considered as natural law versus the written law. That point of time in Italy, in ancient times, the law was quite natural. Nothing was kind of constitution written on paper. In modern America, of course, everyone knows in every modern country, everything is on paper. So ancient versus new, natural versus written, that kind of comparison is there. And along with that, there is the theme of love, desire, and obsession. And this one of my favorite plays, All My Sons, is the story of Joe Keller, who owned a munitions factory with his friend and neighbor. And once he was charged that he has shipped defective parts of the aircraft engine during World War II. Joe's partner actually was convicted and Joe was acquitted. This is what you can call to be situational irony. One who did not know about it at all, that person was convicted, and Joe who knew about it, that person was acquitted. The play explores the Keller's family's complex relationship because it is Keller's family's son actually who is killed, who dies in the World War II because of the faulty engines. It was an immediate success with audiences and critics, and the play has frequently been revived on Broadway and elsewhere around the world. It is still being produced many a times on the stage. All My Sons, the plot has been taken in the movie Rang De Basanti also, the very famous 2006 movie. In this play also, a defective deal is done during the World War involving ministers and big businessmen. If you have watched the movie, you can recall it as well that in the movie also there was a crafty aircraft engine, and the persons who were responsible, who were to be accused, were the politicians and business people, but all the blame was put on the pilot of that particular plane, which in turn leads to a huge disaster throughout the country and impacts many innocent lives. The deal comes into limelight again after some years and affects the lives of each and every person associated with it. All My Sons, the same thing happened, and Rang De Basanti, the same thing happened, but rest of the plot is a bit different. Now we will talk about Death of a Salesman, in which the character Willie Loman is very similar to the character of Rajat Kapoor played in the movie Kapoor and Sons. Only Alia Bhatt and Rishi Kapoor, they were the added characters. Rest of the characters are quite parallel to each and every character in Death of a Salesman, and almost a similar kind of ending, similar kind of plot has been weaved. In his Pulitzer Prize winning play Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller attempts to accurately, very accurately depict, show us the emotions, the pathos of a salesman whose life begins to come apart after his retirement. Till retirement, maybe he kept on thinking that he will achieve a great level of success, but he was a normal salesman. The overwhelming and crippling awareness that one's dream will never be realized in the post retirement life of old age, frailty, and uselessness. This is, I'll say, very stark, very gloomy representation of the agony, the pain, the desperation of a man who has always been just a salesman, who had wanted maybe more from his life, but had his hopes and dreams all shattered by the system which governs the working class. Arthur Miller proved himself to be one of the important social realistic writers of America, and plays continue to be performed all over the world. This plays continue to be performed all over the world. Death of a Salesman as a tragedy we are doing at present. Okay, how we can call it to be a tragedy. There is a flawed hero, Willie Loman, in the shape of Willie Loman. There is a flawed hero who has a fall into despair and events that arouse pity and fear. All of you have done the subject of literary criticism, and now you know about the characteristics of a tragic play. ट्रेजेडी के क्या क्या एलिमेंट्स होते हैं, गिवन बाय एरिस्टटल स्पेसिफिकली. देयर इज अ फ्लॉड हीरो and pity and fear are aroused in the mind of the audience when they are watching the play. So when we see Willy Lomana, we feel pity and fear, these two feels. However, unlike traditional tragedies, the hero is not the epic grand hero. Willy Lomana is nothing like Achilles of Iliad, nothing like Hamlet of Hamlet, nothing like Othello, nothing like King Lear, nothing like Macbeth. The play tells of the demise of everyday domestic figures. So we can say tragic element with realism are mixed. This figure could represent any man, any common person all over the world. Death of a salesman as a tragedy we are doing at present. Willie, the central character, titular character, or hero is not an epic hero. That you need to remember. Willie Loman does not fall from a position of greatness like Macbeth, like Oedipus, or any character that I just uttered. There is a great vagueness surrounding Willie's early life as a salesman, and although Willie's own version of life points to some former glory, but we do not see anything very grand in his life. Traditional tragedy may have dealt with men of greatness and stature, with a kingdom in crisis, but Death of a Salesman centers on the very average, very normal day to day realistic man and his private domestic sphere. And Willy Loman is an everyman figure. Anyone can be like him. Perhaps that very thing is that allows audience to not just sympathize, but to actually empathize, associate with all his suffering and all his decline. Something that happened to him can happen to every normal human being. Not only Willy Loman, even the son Biff can be considered as a tragic hero of sorts. Although he does not receive the same dramatic attention as Willy, he is not as a central character as Willy is. He is similarly troubled, haunted by the failure, both his own and his father's. Biff was good at sports, not bad at studies too, but still he could not achieve much in his life, just like his father, we can say. Biff never really recovers from discovering his father's affair in Boston Hotel. To Willie and himself, perhaps Biff is a disappointment. He is unsuccessful in this capitalistic world. Death of a Salesman has many aspects that are associated with dramatic tragedy. Story tracks the events leading to the death of Willy Loman. That is a tragedy. Willy Loman's whole life, we can say whole unsuccessful life as per him, is a tragedy. He is a tired 60 years old traveling salesman who could not achieve a very prominent special position in his life and could not provide with his family with so many luxuries in life. So ultimately, his death has been shown along with the end of his career. The world in which he operates does not even know him, does not value who he is, and he is forced to confront all his failures. So we can call this not only to be a tragedy, but a common man tragedy or a realistic tragedy. Death of a Salesman perfects the genre of realistic tragedy that began with Eugene O'Neill. Eugene O'Neill, I think all of you know, Harry Ape is written by him, and Eugene O'Neill is also famous for writing realistic tragedy. That tragedy started with Eugene O'Neill. The realistic tragedy, unlike the earlier forms of American dramas in 18th and 19th century, maybe is an instrument of the cultural reprisal. The play appeals to the common man even today. Salesman is the primary culture icon of the industrial and more so of contemporary post-industrial America. The icon does not stand anymore for mere cultural aspirations. It stands for the burden of the aspirations and possibly much more for the price one has to pay for the failure of the aspirations. Death of a Salesman is the existential struggle, existential ethics of millions and millions of Americans. Not only maybe America, any country, any person you can apply, this kind of theme to. People try their whole life to be successful, but ultimately they just end up like every other human being, and the ultimate end of their life is without success, death. This is something which has happened to Willie Loman, and we will call it to be a realistic tragedy. I hope you liked the video and you'll be able to write this answer in your examinations. Thanks for watching. Best of luck for exams, and please do not forget to share and subscribe the channel.